Like we are
Yep.
live on you.
We
There
are
we
live.
go.
That's what he says.
Okay. I will call the Wednesday, April 22nd meeting of the Common Council to order, and I will ask our clerk to call the roll. It looks like we are live on you.
We are live.
That's what he says.
Okay.
Okay, Alderperson Reinke. Oh,
Here. 22nd meeting of the Common Council to order, and I will ask our clerk to call the roll.
let me stop my YouTube. Okay. I'm gonna start over. Sorry. Alderperson Reinke.
Here.
Rote.
Here.
Stefanski.
Here.
Tenorio.
Here.
Vitale.
Here.
Weigel.
Here.
Grisham.
Here.
Haas.
Here.
Keen.
Here.
Isaac.
Here.
10 present.
A quorum is present. Please rise and join the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led this evening by Alderperson Reinke.
I pledge of the United States of America
And
to the
and
republic
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
nation,
under
God,
God, indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will now move on to item D on our agendas. I will ask people if they can, just to preserve the audio quality, if they could mute themselves so we don't pick up any background noise during these presentations. Clerk, could you read public hearing number 1?
Resolution relative to the determination of an application for a special use permit for Cleveland Auto, a proposed auto repair facility to be located at 8440 West Cleveland Avenue.
Thank you. I believe this is Steve Scher going to be presenting this one.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Welcome, everyone. My name is Steve Scher. I'm the manager of planning and zoning. I'll be presenting the 2 hearings on the agenda this evening, the first one being 84th in Cleveland. Now, this has historically always been a mixed-use building with residential upstairs and commercial auto repair on the ground floor. The reason why it's coming back or coming before us this evening for a public hearing is that there's been a 12-month or longer lapse since the last known operator of, I think it was S&F Auto that was there previously. So this is a look at the building from Cleveland Avenue at 85th Street. You'll see that there's 4 garage bays providing service on the first level of the building. The upper floor has about a 2,000 square foot apartment. The building's currently unoccupied, but would be reused for future of auto repair. This is an aerial view of the same site. You'll notice that there's an alley to the north of the property, as well as a single-family residential neighborhood to the north, as well, and also a single-family residential neighborhood to the west of 85th Street, and also further south of Cleveland. We have a mixed-use and commercial neighborhood. To the east are existing commercial properties, and then east of 84th is basically McCarty Park. The layout really isn't going to be changing much in terms of the proposed use. What you see in the photographs and the aerial view previously is more or less the same layout that the new operator is going to operate with. The zoning of the property is C3 Community Commercial District, which does permit auto repair as a special use. That does permit also mixed use properties, the special use permit. And again, the lower level is 2,800 square feet. That's the auto repair portion with a 2,000 square foot upper residential apartment. Cleveland Auto is going to be performing light automotive repair on site, which will include everything from oil changes to brakes. None of the more noxious types of uses, such as auto body, paint, or fumes, such as that. This will be primarily more of the lighter service offerings for the city and its patrons. Again, 4 service bays. The business will have about 4 persons in terms of staff. The hours of operation are daytime hours from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday. They'll be closed on Sundays. And the parking requirement for the property is about 20 parking stalls. They'll have about 24 available on site. Now, the next slide is going to be the site and landscaping plan that's been presented to our Planning Commission and as submitted by the applicant. And so internally within the building, there's going to be primarily a lot of interior upgrades within the building. On the outside, more or less maintenance updates, some painting, some trim work. In terms of site work to the existing site, the layout of parking is really not going to change from previous uses. The landscape area along Cleveland Avenue as well as 85th Street is going to be replenished with landscaping. Right now, it's just empty from over a year of vacancy. The landscaping that was there previously has died off. The new owner is going to be installing new landscaping to replenish again that existing planter bed and to bring the site back up to a healthier and more vibrant condition. Plan Commission has recommended that a new landscaping island be installed at the south end cap of this area here. If you can see my cursor, they're proposing a small landscaping bed there. The site is accessible via 85th Street to the west, as well as towards Cleveland Avenue. And right now, there's a refuse area behind the building. The owner is going to be installing a 4-sided refuse enclosure to better hide and screen the garbage dumpster that would be outside for the business and for the residential. And then furthermore, they're talking about installing a wood decorative fence along the back side of the property, which would prevent cars or vehicles coming and going from the site via the alley. So all traffic would be coming in either via Cleveland Avenue or 85th Street, existing driveway approaches as shown on the site plan. So Plan Commission has recommended approval at the March 25th meeting. There has been a notice sent out to property owners approximately within 200 feet of this property. And our planning staff has received no objections to date with respect to this proposed use. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to entertain those right now.
Thank you, Mr. Scher. Are there any questions from the members of the Common Council on this item?
Mayor Devine?
Alderman Rote?
Yeah, Steve, one of my concerns here is that this is going to turn into a toll lot, because this is what the applicant currently has on 55th or 56th and Electric Avenue, right behind Greeby's there. There's already 4 flatbed trucks that are there now, several, and I'm guessing maybe 7 to 10 cars without license plates, unregistered. And that's what I fear. That's my biggest concern here. I know prior to that, there was a lot of cars there and they have since been removed. But I know when I go to take my car to get it fixed, to get an oil change or a tune-up or whatever, I don't break the windshield and take the license plates off and let the air out of the tires. And that's what I'm seeing over there right now. Is there any protection we have regarding this? Also, there's a hoist, a hydraulic hoist outside those 2 bays that are to the east. Are they going to be able to use that as well?
Yes, with respect to the trucks that you see out there right now, those are going to be removed, I'm told, by the property owner. And they will, the owner of the business is going to be, apparently he drives a larger commercial vehicle to and from work. That will be parked on site just to the east of the building. And then the owner will be putting in a fence along the alley to help hide that truck, I guess, from the neighbors to the north of the alley. With respect to the other trucks that you see out there, it's not part of their approved site plan from the Plan Commission. So if they are planning on having something more out there, they'll need to show that on the on the site plan, bring that back to the Planning Commission. And I would also seek the approval of Common Council as well. What we've tried to structure here with them is some order to the site to address exactly the concerns you've brought up about just, a lot of cars and unknowns on the property. What we have on the approved plan is more or less what we want to see in reality, just an organization to the layout, the staging of vehicles, and the type of vehicles on the property. So I would agree with you that we don't want it becoming an eyesore for the neighborhood whatsoever.
So the unregistered vehicles without plates and things like that would be discussed or put into this plan?
Yes, and in fact, the owner of the property and the operator have indicated that there won't be vehicles there longer than 7 days. The idea is to get cars and vehicles that customers bring in turned over back to people, repaired, and not sitting on this property for a lengthy period of time. This isn't an industrial lot. It's not long-term storage by any means. It should be really just for purely auto repair. You bring a vehicle to them, they fix it, and it goes away. And so, they should be cycling through things rather than it's not a long-term storage lot.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Sure.
Mayor Devine.
Alderman Weigel?
Steve, to piggyback on what Alderman Rhodes said, would they be allowed to do sales of used cars from this lot? So they could park cars on there with for sales signs on them potentially, or is that not allowed under the special use?
That's a good point, Alderman Weigel, and that would not be allowed within this zoning district. Outdoor vehicle sales display is not a permitted use within the C3 commercial district. That would be only allowed in a commercial C4 zoning district, such as in the Highway 100 area where you see international.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. I'm told Alderman Lysick has his hand up, but I can't see it, but I got a message.
Mayor Devine, Steve, I understand that the owner does work for various used car dealers around the area. He'll take a car in that they are going to sell and maybe put brakes on it, that type of thing. So there wouldn't necessarily be plates on those vehicles. And I don't think that's an issue, is it?
Not from the zoning perspective, it's not an issue. Again, as long as it's not becoming the used car lot, it can't be that under the zoning district. So if they are servicing a vehicle that's for sale somewhere else, that's fine. But again, it can't sit there with a tag on it for sale from that property.
Correct. It's my understanding he's not going to sell anything there, but he does a fair amount of work as part of his business model is to do work for the various used car lots around town. And so he will be having vehicles without plates there. And I know other places around the city do the same type of thing. I just want to make sure he's treated the same as everyone else that does this type of work.
Okay. You are correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Lysick. Any other questions from the Common Council? Okay, seeing none. Are there any public comments that have come in via the email listed on our agenda?
No, there haven't been any.
Okay, so with no questions from the public, I will close public hearing number 1, and I will ask our clerk this evening to read public hearing number 2.
Resolution relative to determination of an application for a special use permit for Layman Brewing, a proposed brew pub to be located at 6001 West Madison Street.
Mr. Scher.
Thank you, Mayor. Layman Brewing is interested in locating their business at in the former Cocapelli's use at 60th and Madison Street. For years, this has always been a tavern use, and then behind the tavern, which is on the street front of 60th and Madison, behind that is a second portion of the building, which is a one-story portion of the building, which is used currently as a hall. Layman is purchased the building and from the Kokopelli ownership, and their intent is to continue use and operation of the existing tavern, which they currently are doing, and they fulfilled the remainder of obligations for the Kokopelli's hall use. And what they'd like to do with that rear portion of the building where the hall is for Kokopelli's is convert that by actually demolishing that portion of the building and then rebuilding it for a brewery production facility, as well as a tasting room area where there'd be some seating and an outdoor patio for a small outdoor dining area outside the building, behind the building. So the reason, again, why this is here is exactly that, for the proposed installation of a brew pub and along with outdoor dining. The building is actually a mixed-use property with a residential apartment upstairs. The lower portion is the tavern use. And a brew pub, by definition, or by, I guess, in terms of the meaning of a brew pub, it's a bar that serves their beer directly to consumers and accompanies their beer with food. I'm told they're not going to be distributing beer from this location. They basically are going to be producing it up to about not more than 1,000 barrels annually if they're wildly successful, and they would be consuming that on site. Their patrons would, and again, not being distributed throughout the area is what I'm told right now, the current plan. So again, in terms of the scope of what we see there today, it's this one-story portion of the building here that would be demolished and then rebuilt. We'll get to some slides later that show the new look, but this portion is demolished and rebuilt for a brew pub with some seating and outdoor dining over in this location here. The hours will be Monday to Friday, 11 a.m. to close, and Saturday and Sunday from 8:30 a.m. to close. They do have general production hours, staff hours, which are maybe go a little bit outside of that previously stated patron hours from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. We're also going to be serving, they'll have a food menu, different specials, days of the week specials, Tuesday night tacos, Wednesday wings, Thursday burgers, and so on, that will be provided on site. They're also looking at it being a very casual, family-oriented establishment where people from all ages can come and enjoy a nice meal, as well as taste the Layman brew. This is the location at the northwest corner of 60th and the northeast corner of 60th and Madison. You'll note that the front portion of the property is primarily all building. The rear portion is currently a gravel parking lot. There is an alley behind the building. There is a driveway off of Madison Street, which would be utilized. They are going to be proposing actually to improve this gravel parking lot from gravel to a paved surface with some landscaping, and also corralling the dumpster area and overall cleaning up the site, giving it a new look. This is a plan view of their site plan, and you can see the blue on the front is the existing tavern. The portion of the hall that's going to be demolished and rebuilt is in red. They are going to be installing an access ramp that wraps around the back side of the building and then comes around to a patio area here for some outdoor seating. The refuse area and recycling area is going to be contained within a four-sided gated refuse enclosure. And there are 3 parking stalls shown on the site, which will be accessed via the existing driveway off of Madison Street. There's no alley access. I mean, while there is an alley back here, there's a fairly significant grade difference between the alley and the surface parking here. So there won't be any access from the alley. It'll all come off of Madison. There will be some landscaping also installed to buffer the parking stalls along Madison Street as well. This gravel area here that's shown is going to be changed to a grass area to act as somewhat of a swale or a rain garden to collect some of the water runoff. next slide shows a little bit more detail in terms of the proposed floor plan. And again, the existing tavern area is up in front. It has an existing kitchen currently, the front door being right at the corner. And then from there, this is the hall area, currently the hall area, which is going to be rebuilt and converted to brewery production, as well as some seating area. New restroom facilities will be installed within the building, the outdoor patio, and then this is the parking lot back here. The views of the architectural design on the north elevation, that would be the side facing Madison Street. This is what you'll see. So this is the existing look of the tavern. And this is the new addition that we placed on the back of the building. It'll feature taller curtain glass walls with a view into the brewery production area. And then on the back side of the building, facing the alley, facing facing south, there will be, this is a view from like the patio area, the outdoor patio area. They'll have an overhead garage door, a glass paneled garage door that can be opened on nicer days and closed on cooler days, but it'll offer a little bit more flexibility and transparency into the building and ease of access for patrons. It offers some spaciousness to the overall look of the space. On the west side of the building, down here, they're proposing some new windows on the back side of the building, and this is that access ramp that comes up and wraps around the back side of the building over the patio. And then the east elevation really isn't changing much at all. It's just the existing tavern area. They are going to be adding a fence between their tavern and the other bar just to the south next door to hide some mechanicals, air conditioning units, and so on in between the two buildings. So they've just launched a new website, Layman Brewing, and you're welcome to take a look at that when you have a chance. But they're very excited to purchase this property and come to West Allis. Plan Commission has approved their plans conditionally at the March 25th Plan Commission meeting, and no objections have been received to date. So with that, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are there any questions from the Common Council on public hearing number 2?
Mayor Devine?
Alderperson Keene.
Is this their first stationary shop? Do they have any other brew pubs or restaurants, or is this their first?
This is their first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the council?
Mayor Devine?
Alderman Weigel?
Steve, do we have an idea on increase in the taxable value and the total number of full-time or full-time equivalent jobs? Is that in their proposal here or anywhere?
I would have to take a look, and I can get back to you at the after the public hearing here and take a look at that and share that with everyone. But yeah, it would definitely be adding to the value with the new addition. It's basically a new building that they'd be creating on the backside of the existing tavern, and then there will definitely be more jobs with the production of beer, as well as service that's going to be provided both in terms of food and beer. I would expect that the number of jobs is going to be higher than in the current levels as Coca-Pelli's, but I'll confirm that with you after the public hearing.
And Steve, did I understand you correctly? The applicant's currently operating the bar, but they have not bought it yet. So are they just leasing from the current owner and they're waiting for this approval to go forward with their purchase, I assume?
Correct. They have a valid offer to purchase the property, right? They're just trying to secure their approvals at this point, and then they'll close.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the Common Council on public hearing number 2?
Mayor Devine,
Alderperson Grisham.
are the new owners actually residents in West Allis? Do we have any background on them?
I don't believe they are. I believe they live in in Milwaukee.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the members of the council? Seeing none, I will ask if we've received any input from the public via email.
No, we did not.
Thank you. If there are no questions from the public, then we will close public hearing number 2. And I will move on to section E of our agendas. Our standing committees will be meeting virtually during our recess. So there are no room numbers listed, but they will be on this channel we are all watching. Moving to item F is the mayor's report. I do not have a mayor's report this evening, so we will go right to item G. Are there any reports from the alderpersons? As best I can tell, we have no alderpersons reports unless somebody's muted and struggling. Looks good.
Mayor Devine,
Alderman Lysick.
I move for approval of the minutes of the Common Council meeting of March 17th, 2020, and the special meeting of April 8th, 2020.
Second.
There is a motion with a second by Alderperson Grisham. Were there any changes or amendments to the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. We'll move to item I on our agendas. I'll ask for a motion to place item 4 on file and refer items 5, 6, and 7 to the city attorney.
So moved.
Second.
I was going to remind you all if you could state your name after your motion so we can keep track of who's making the motions. Who had the first motion?
Alderman Weigel.
Weigel, and second by Stefanski. There's no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're looking at item J. We do not have any standing committee reports this evening.
Mayor Devine,
Alderman Lysick.
I move that we stand in recess until conclusion of the committee meetings.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We are in recess.
All right, I'm going to unmute. There we go. Yeah, I'll unmute myself and we'll move into the Administration and Finance Committee report. All members of the Administration and Finance Committee are present. Item 8 is a resolution ratifying the emergency purchase by the fire chief executed power compressor in the amount of $65,533.73.
Move approval by Alderman Weigel.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. And item 9, a resolution to consider an economic development loan and housing rehabilitation loan deferments, interest forgiveness regarding COVID-19.
Move for approval.
Second by Weigel.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, and I'm going to give that second to Alderperson Tenorio. That's I think his first second. I'm giving you that one, Angelito. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it.
Aye.
And item 10, Clearwing Productions Incorporated communication regarding a mass layoff. Can I have a motion to place that on file?
So move, Alderman Lysick.
Second by Weigel.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. And item 11, communication from the Assistant City Administrator for Talent and Strategy Director requesting classification of 2 Human Resources Specialist positions.
Move approval by Weigel.
Second, Lysick.
And any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. And item 12 is a communication from the mayor, city administrator, and departments regarding the novel coronavirus. Yeah, is this the point? We had the email from Bob at the health department. Is this the point where we'd like to discuss this, or what's the pleasure? I'm directing that toward the mayor and city administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess the first thing I just wanted to inform everybody of, and then I think we want to go through the health department next, and then probably Public Works. And after that, we can touch on development. And I think that's everyone. But there is a letter that I am going to be signing on to, and I just wanted to make you all aware. It's from Government Affairs at Milwaukee County, and it's the 19 municipalities in Milwaukee County that are obviously being impacted by the pandemic. And we are asking that the governor allocate the balance of the funds originally appropriated to Milwaukee County by Congress and signed by the president in the CARES Act to the cities, to the communities, and into Milwaukee County. There's, I'll just read this briefly so I have the details correctly. The impact of the Treasury's interpretation of the CARES Act removed approximately $103 million from our local economy and sent it to Madison for state spending. It is critical that our citizens' tax dollars are sent back to infuse our local economy with meaningful dollars to support local jobs, contracts, necessary shovel-ready projects, and critical recovery efforts. So we are just asking basically for the tools for that money to come back to the municipalities in Milwaukee County. And I will email a copy of this over tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Devine. Anybody else that would like to discuss item 13? Okay, then can I have a motion to place that item on file? Oh, somebody saying something?
Rebecca?
Yeah, please, Ms. Grill, go ahead.
The Health Commissioner and Public Works Director and the Development Department, I believe, have some additional items they'd like to share with you under this item.
Good, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, please, yeah, you folks can go ahead. Whoever wants to go first, go ahead.
Bob, could you go ahead?
Yep, can you guys hear me? I'm
yes.
Trying to pull up my screen right now. Okay, can you see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be introduced to you folks. I'm Bob Leishaw. I'm the City of West Allis Health Commissioner. And actually on the line, I believe we have Ashley Palin, who is our Deputy Health Commissioner and directly oversees our Community Health Division as well as our Environmental Health Division. So really what I want to do tonight is essentially just give you a breakdown of kind of current activity with regard to COVID activity, not just in West Allis, but also talk a little bit about our interaction with West Milwaukee. For those who are not aware, our health department does also serve to provide health services to West Milwaukee. So in front of you is just a very basic timeline sequence of activities to this point. So starting with March 14th, 2020 is when we actually identified our first positive case in West Allis. March 25th, already we had one person out of isolation. If we jump over to the left side, unfortunately on March 26th is when we realized our first West Allis death. March 20th is when we had our first positive West Milwaukee case. April 3rd is when we jumped to 50 cases in both West Allis and West Milwaukee. And then by April 10th, we are already up to 100 cases in both the city and the village. So it just demonstrates how quickly this virus has spread. Again, keeping in mind that there is no vaccine for this particular virus, nor is there any known immunity. Want to talk a little bit about the new DHS, or Department of Health Service Guidance, that I'm sure most of you have heard about, that came out 2 days ago. So essentially what that did was extend the Safer at Home order to May 26. So why is the Safer at Home order being extended? Without effective treatments or vaccine, the Safer at Home order alone, with our recognized physical and social distancing, avoiding of mass gatherings, staying home when sick, and etc., really has been our main, and really what I need to add here is main non-pharmaceutical intervention in Wisconsin. And the good news is, because of these strategies, we are beginning to see results. So you've heard a lot about flattening the curve. And so when we talk about seeing results, that's what that's in relation to. So what's new? So most of the order, Order 12 is the same and compared to the new order that came out. And I forget what number it is, number 31, I believe. But changes that are built in ensure that the safety, while allowing some activities to, with restrictions, reopen again in really data-based phases. Okay, so that's going to be important to recognize, is that we are going to be looking to essentially what could be considered, quote unquote, a smart restart of our business, looking into these various phases. But most immediately, we're looking at public libraries reopening, allowing for curbside pickup, golf courses with restrictions that no in-person scheduling or payment occur. But then also recognizing that clubhouses and pro shops remain closed. For non-essential businesses, they will be able to reopen with restrictions, and those restrictions really being focused to curbside pickup, mailings, and deliveries. Arts and crafts stores, so again, looking to allow them to have curbside pickup for materials necessary for cloth face masks, as an example. And then other aesthetic, optional exterior work types of businesses. So lawn care, construction companies that really can be open, but really looking to do so with one person. Other stipulations that were built into the extension of the Safer at Home order has recognized that schools are in fact closed for the remainder of this school year. Local parks may close if it becomes too difficult to ensure social distancing or vandalism. Travel, generally speaking, people strongly are still encouraged to stay close to home, not travel to second homes, and not travel out of the state if not necessary. So we talked a little bit about numbers to this point and moving forward. So I thought you might be interested to know of really the degree of testing that's been happening, excuse me, in both West Allis and Milwaukee. As you can see, a vast majority of the tests that have happened to this point have resulted in negative tests, with 131 being positive and then 26 being categorized as probable or suspect. In total, this represents 893 total tests having been completed as of yesterday, I think is when we were looking at the most recent data. The sources that we get this information from are through the Wisconsin Disease Surveillance System, or otherwise what's known as WEDS. So that's what health departments and other health systems have access to essentially monitor on a daily basis case activity. So why is West Allis and West Milwaukee data being combined? Again, as I mentioned up front, because this particular health department does support both the city as well as the village. Talk a little bit about the data itself by definition. So we're getting into a little bit of epidemiology when we talk about confirmed cases. So these are actually laboratory confirmed cases. So people who have gone for tests and actually have a diagnosis. Then we fall into categories of probable and suspected. And then ultimately not a case. So these are people who are under investigation, who have a negative test, but then been assessed as not a case. Okay, we're really just going to focus on positives and negatives for this particular presentation. So we're going to look at age and then move on to gender. This slide represents positive and negative. So when we look at the total number of West Allis and West Milwaukee COVID-19 residents tested, what this graph is essentially telling us is that, again, if you look to the bottom to the legend, not cases represents a negative. So you can see, again, a vast majority of those tested are negative. And unfortunately, when you look to the top in the orange parts of it, confirmed cases or positive cases are reflected at the top of those bar graphs. So proportionally, you can see we have more negatives than we do positives. When we look at age distribution of confirmed cases in both West Allis and Milwaukee, by age, this essentially gives a representation of by age group. So if you look along the bottom by age group, those demographics that are impacted the most. So as you can see, the older populations are what are considered to be the most vulnerable populations. So testing of all West Allis and West Milwaukee residents by gender, okay, we can see that a vast majority of those tested are female, 60 to 40, 60% female, 40% male. When we look at confirmed cases by gender in both West Allis and West Milwaukee, we're seeing that slightly more females are testing positive compared to males. So in total, when we look at the cases to this point, we are sitting on a caseload of 131 positive cases in both jurisdictions, 127 in West Allis and 4 in West Milwaukee. When we speak a little bit about the vulnerable population and what we are doing to help address their particular needs, few activities have been ongoing within our own incident command structure that we have in the health department. We've focused on isolation centers. So we have a small team of people who have explored local options, but then ultimately decided to utilize the services or the facilities that Milwaukee County has to offer, largely in what they have arranged with the Super 8 Motel over by the airport, and then also Clare Hall. Clare Hall is really designated for largely homeless or transient individuals. So despite us looking internally for available facilities, we just really felt at this point we may as well leverage and essentially just utilize the services that we have available at this point. Talk a little bit about food security efforts. Health department has secured family and senior food stock boxes to distribute directly to a few families. And if you look at the bullets below, really what these food boxes are intended to do is support those families or those individuals who have essentially been put into quarantine or into isolation and are essentially stuck at home. So as part of our follow up with them and routine interaction with a patient, or we don't have patients, we have clients. We ask them of their needs, and as we are best appropriate or best able to, we provide them with foods that we have available to us. So to this point, 9 family food boxes and 3 senior stock boxes have been distributed to families as of 4/20/20. The West Allis Senior Center is a division or a department under the health department. So I want to talk a little bit about what they have really been up to in these past few weeks. Largely based on not only their staff that are on board, but also in large part with the volunteers that they have still working with them. So as you can see right now, they have about 45 volunteers who are helping to actually make outbound calls to their clientele to speak to that line list that's in front of you. They played a key role in voting. They provide the senior drive-through meal program, which on the next slide will give a better kind of portrayal of the sheer number of meals that have been handed out to this point. They're playing a key role in helping to collect census information, and then just otherwise outreaching to the seniors with regard to a lot of the scams that we are hearing about. And then to, with regard to their meal distribution and their connection to the Hunger Task Force, they play a critical part in essentially packaging meals and making those meals available to seniors. So this particular slide essentially demonstrates that to this point. Through April of 21, the drive-through senior dining program has essentially made available 860 total meals to elderly who are in need. So to begin to wind things down, it goes without saying that, there's a lot going on, certainly, not just from a public health perspective, but we are very diligent and deliberate about working with a number of partners, in this very much unprecedented time in public health history. So do want to give some specific attention to these various partners who we work with pretty routinely to assure our lines of communication are open, doing our best not to step on toes, but then also to provide the best guidance and support to the residents in need.
All right, thank you. Oh, hey, that's what the slide says.
There you go. Thank you. Yes. And then just a short list of resources that are available.
Yeah, thank you again, Bob. Does anybody have any questions for Bob?
I have a question. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
Bob, what are we doing regarding testing? As we all know, if we're going to open up the community and the state at some point, testing is a major problem, and it doesn't look as though we've been able to conduct very many tests at this point. A very small percentage of our population has been tested. Where do we stand with, number one, testing our first responders, number two, our public works employees and other employees from the city, and number three, outreach to employers in the area within the city that are in contact, such as grocery workers and those types of people. I think it's imperative that we step up our testing program if we want to open up this community.
Right. And I appreciate the question. Yeah, the testing kits and just the capacity has been a challenge, not just for us, but for the entire state and nation. There are deliberate efforts now, especially under the governor's new executive order to make testing kits more readily available. So there is still a tiered system in place. And essentially what that is saying is those who are most vulnerable are going to be the first to receive testing. Healthcare providers and the such are also going to be, the first to receive the testing. But I guess just to let you know, now with the release of the governor's new executive order, and very clearly making it known that first and foremost, in order for us to kind of reopen business, one thing that's going to happen is we're going to have to do a better job of making the testing available. So in our own case, I can share with you that actually I am meeting with the CEO of Aurora Medical Center tomorrow to actually get a better understanding from a clinical perspective what their plan is moving forward, and then also to see if there might be a way we can actually utilize the now vacant Aurora Clinic that's directly across the street from the health department as a potential testing location. And so that discussion has already begun. And so I should know more tomorrow with regard to just locally how and when we should be able to make the testing more available.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Bob, out of the people that have passed away from COVID-19, how many of those people had underlying conditions or previous health conditions? And also, how many people total have recovered?
Oh boy, that's a good question. Ashley, are you on? Ashley?
Yeah, I'm here. I can take a stab at that. I believe all of the people that passed away had underlying health conditions on their death certificate. And in regards to those that have recovered, we're currently sitting at 35 West Allis residents, which have been released from isolation, and 1 West Milwaukee resident.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Weigel.
Just a quick comment and then a couple questions that if everyone doesn't know, Clare Hall, where Bob mentioned the homeless people are being helped out, I believe is along the South Shore in an Archdiocese property. Is that correct, Bob?
That is correct.
Okay. And then my questions on the testing. Who is getting tested now? Are these tests typically ordered by a physician in an emergency room setting? Or because I haven't been tested, I imagine nobody on the council's been tested, and it looks like we've done like 800 tests.
Right, yeah.
In the city, along with West Milwaukee, that's got to be 65,000 people, I'm going to guess off the top of my head. Only, what does it take to get a test? Do you have to have symptoms? Do you have, is this prescribed by a doctor currently?
So yeah, so the push right now is to identify anyone who has symptoms, and then have those with symptoms essentially contact their provider. And really now the provider industry, so the clinics and the hospitals are really under new direction to better make the testing capability available. And so one thing that we've been running into as a challenge is many people presenting with what they feel are symptoms. Many have gone through some kind of a telehealth screening process. A provider might say, well, okay, you've got a cough, but we're not going to get you in for testing because you may not have been exposed. However, even though they may not have been tested, there have been a number of patients who have been put into quarantine for 40 days without actually having a formal diagnosis. So this new order is attempting to kind of shore up, that kind of scenario where anybody with symptoms, should have increased access to their clinical provider. There's also now discussion about the possibility of health departments who are capable of also doing this testing. Now, not every health department has the staffing skill set, the competencies to do that. Our own health department might be in a position with the wonderful nursing staff that we have to start taking some of that on. But really the push right now is to have the healthcare systems and the clinics really take that on. And so with that though is promise from the state that there are going to be more kits available, readily available, when these questions of testing come up.
Okay, and then one more thing on our assisted living centers. I asked at our last council meeting or last regular council meeting. I just wanted to make sure that now I've seen that we've limited contact. So any operator that has more than one location, we're not letting them send employees back from one to the other, and that's good. Are we physically sending staff in even once in a while into our assisted living centers in the city just to, maybe do a walkthrough or check their records?
We are for certain facilities, we have had physical presence. In other facilities, we're having routine conversations with them with regard to specific long-term care nursing home guidelines that the state pushes out, and then also we will push out as this reassurance that they are aware of those guidelines.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions for Bob or further discussion on this item?
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Tenorio.
Bob, I have a quick question. Do you have data on geographic where these cases are occurring in West Allis and West Milwaukee? I've seen reports of hotspots.
Yeah, in fact, I should have put that on this last slide. So actually the Medical College of Wisconsin has a very well prepared and a very comprehensive dashboard that is open to the public. And so Ashley, do you happen to just know that website off the top of your noggin?
I don't know the name of the website, but if you Google Milwaukee County COVID, it's the first result every time. So I'll look that up and put it in the chat for you guys.
Yeah, and it's a very impressive, data-heavy breakdown of a number of different variables that also includes a map. And so there is a cluster map that you can actually query and zoom in on, and so you can very clearly see where these clusters are. I will essentially make note, that as you're looking at these clusters are based on census tracts. Okay, so they're not defined to a specific location. It's just based on a geographic area. Okay. Now I say that with a little bit of a caveat that as you look at certain clusters, the large numbers that you might be seeing could be attributed to, it could be attributed to a large number of people throughout that area, or it could be attributed to a particular facility.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions for Bob? I think Alderperson Reinke's trying to say something. You're on mute, Rosie. You're still on mute, Rosie.
All right, can you?
There we go. Oh.
No?
Go ahead, Rosie. We can hear you now.
Thank you. there is Mr. Chair, there is considerable press about these senior facilities that have experienced the virus. Do we have any of our of these facilities experienced the virus in West Allis or West Milwaukee?
We are working with one undisclosed facility where there is outbreak activity.
And how many residents are exposed?
Well, we're really, I would say it's a census of over 100, but I can't, for confidentiality and privacy reasons, can't get into any specific details with regard to those numbers.
Thank you.
Okay, and Alderperson Grisham, I think you wanted to be recognized.
Yes, thank you. Bob, I have a question relative to that outbreak. Although it's undisclosed location per se and confidentiality, what extra measures is the health department putting into effect to keep us updated on that, or specific to particular districts per se?
So with regard to the health department and what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, we are in daily communication with that facility, working with their executive director and then also their corporate leadership. So part of the process is as they do their own testing, and one of the, I would say, real beauties / benefits of this particular facility is that they do have the ability, unlike most other facilities, to do their own internal testing. So it's very unique. But with that also comes the realization that their numbers are also going to be reflectively higher compared to a lot of other long-term care facilities. So the numbers might be scary, but from a public health perspective, it's good for us to know those numbers, because we will have more precision and know with more preciseness the actual activity, outbreak activity, in that facility. We work with them to talk about guidelines. We work with them to introduce them to state Department of Health leadership, infectious disease folks. They also are in conversation along with us with the state Division of Quality Assurance. And so they are actually the regulatory agency for these types of specialized care facilities. And so as part of the epidemiology, we get data from them on a daily basis in terms of their positives, negatives, all of the testing that they're doing. And then it's up to us to do any contact tracing. And so when they have positives, then in all likelihood, there's going to be exposures. And then that's when our team will essentially go through a line list and an attempt to contact all of these people who may have been exposed to a particular person. And so that's kind of the day in the life of how we interact with a facility like this. Again, we are working very closely with them, including a number of other subject matter experts in this area, in the state, to really look at best strategies and best practices in terms of how we can get them beyond kind of where they're at this point, this outbreak activity.
Okay, and I do have another question regarding that. How many are recovering and where are they at as the duration of isolation? I know that it could be multiple cases and a continued spread within that facility per se, but do you have data as far as the improvements that are taking place as a result of these extra measures that are put in place?
We do, and I will defer to Ashley on that.
So as part of our daily update that we have with the clinical staff at the facility, we get a count not only of those that are positive, negative, and experiencing symptoms, but we also get to a number in relation to those that are showing symptom improvement. Daily, we're getting temperature and symptom monitoring from many residents, and those symptom monitoring are used to help us determine when people have their first well day, which is the first indicator that they're heading towards being off of isolation. So we're monitoring those on a daily basis, twice daily, and using that information to make the determination on when people are able to leave isolation, when people are able to be out of quarantine, so that the next phase for any contacts that are not positive but had exposure risks, once they are asymptomatic for 14 days, they're released from quarantine. So we're working with the facilities as well as all of our cases to do that level of twice daily monitoring to just ensure that we're being as appropriate and accurate as we can when we're thinking of releasing people from isolation and allowing them to return back to their normal lives.
Okay, thank you.
So then the question, I think was the number of positives who we are anticipating to essentially come out of isolation. So Ashley, did you have that number?
Talking about for the entire population of West Allis and West Milwaukee?
With regard to this facility?
Oh, in regards to this facility, because of the nature of it being a closed space, a facility, we haven't released anyone from isolation just yet because we want to be very cautious that we're not increasing community-wide spread. But it is something that we're looking into, and we feel optimistic that we're getting close to that point with many of the people that we're working with.
Okay, so you don't definitively have the numbers that you're going to offer, is what I'm hearing?
For the residents that we're working with within this facility, we haven't released anyone from isolation yet.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Bob and Ashley. I think that was very thorough, and I would like to move on. We also have a report from Public Works, and of course, keeping in mind, we might have a long meeting here tonight since all of our committees need to meet individually. I'm trying to move this along. So if other alderpersons have questions for Bob or for Ashley, I'd encourage them to take that up with them either after the meeting or tomorrow. So Dave Wepking, you're up next. Tell us about Public Works, please.
Thank you, Chairperson Haas. Again, my name is Dave Wepking, Director of Public Works. Tonight, I wanted to provide you with an option regarding the opening of the Public Works drop-off site located at 6300 West McGew Avenue. As some of you may have recalled, in order to address the Governor Evers' initial stay-at-home order on or near March 12th, I recommended to close the drop-off site to you to encourage compliance of the stay-at-home order. In my communication to you, all the alderpersons this morning, we would like to, given the most recent stay-at-home order, we would like to consider opening the Public Works drop-off site for all the residents for materials that require no fees, and that's a key point. Anything that would be disposed at the drop-off site would be those items that require no fee or no transactions between the employees as well as the residents. This would allow us to limit the potential exposure to the resident as well as to other employees, ensuring the social distancing, the recommended 6 feet. Our goal is to open the drop-off site on Friday, April 24th, and this will also coincide with the expiration of the governor's first stay-at-home order. I do have the materials that would be eligible to be dropped off, and they are the ones that are of the most demand to be disposed of. That would be refuse, large furniture, antifreeze, cardboard, recycling material, oil, scrap metal, brush, yard waste, and certain electronics. So I welcome any feedback that you may have or recommendations.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. I'll start. I think that sounds good to me. I've had some feedback from folks wanting the yard open, and I think what you're proposing makes a whole lot of sense, where we can still maintain the social distancing, but still accommodate the needs of our citizens. So it sounds good to me.
Okay, thank you.
And Marty gave a thumbs up. Well done, Marty. Yeah. Any other discussion? I guess I'm also looking for a consensus from the Administration and Finance Committee members as far as proceeding. This sounds good to everybody. If I can get some head nods.
Mr. Chair, it sounds
Yes.
good to me.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, very good. And then moving on is development, and who from development would like to speak?
This is Patrick. I can speak. Can
Thanks,
everyone hear me?
Patrick. Go ahead.
Thank you, Alderman and Mayor, and members of the Common Council. With this COVID national emergency, our businesses have definitely been impacted in our community. So development is working on two particular items. One is the extra community development block grant funds that have been received from the federal government, as well as looking at ways to help our local businesses. Since the announcement and the mandated closures have started, we reached out to over 50 businesses, making them sure that they were aware of a number of the programs that were established by the federal government through the SBA, the Payroll Protection Program, also WEDC's program. Most recently, we sent a postcard, I believe, to over 2,000 West Allis businesses, advising them of the website that we had established, listing a number of these resources. So we have been following up with a number of businesses. There are no programs that necessarily don't meet their particular business needs, but we continue to research and try to provide the technical assistance that we can. On the Community Development Block Grant Program, I sent tonight a draft budget. We're expected to get $762,000 of Community Development Block Grant funds, but the majority of those funds will be devoted to helping our health department doing COVID awareness and other particular items or purchase things necessary to help address the COVID crisis. We also put funds in the budget for a food shelter or food pantry to provide meals to low-income residents here in our city. And that's pretty much the majority of our program, is to help the low income in our community impacted by this crisis. We also included rent assistance and mortgage assistance. And then we also have small business assistance. Now, we're thinking that when this crisis is over, there will be a number of businesses that will need resources to help get restarted. And that would be a focus of our program, is to provide flexible loans, low interest, extended terms to help get businesses up and going. And we call it the West Allis Restart Program under the Block Grant Program. And that would be for businesses that are 20 employees or less. And then we would have a grant program that we would hope to work with WIBIC to help micro enterprise businesses that with a grant with 5 employees or less. Some of these are all dictated by the federal program of community development block grant funds and what needs to be done. But we hope to have these in formal detail outlined for the next common council meeting. And we welcome any input to help drive these funds out to the community to help those most in need. I gladly answer any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Real quickly, does anybody have any questions for Patrick?
I do. This is Alderwoman Keene. Patrick, when you had mentioned low income, what is that based off of? Is it based off of the current financial situation due to COVID, where normally it's 2 working people and now they can't on unemployment, or is it based on yearly? How is that deciphered?
A lot of the programmatic side of things will have to be fleshed out, and also follow some of the national guidance that's coming, and it's coming slowly. A number of communities like ourselves are looking at the rent assistance and mortgage assistance program for people who are generally 30% of the county median income. So we're trying to help those most in need. If there's individuals that don't come with that need, then we'll go to a higher percentage of income. But the calculation of income, we usually look back 6 months, but we'll have to address the COVID crisis, lost job, inability inability to pay rent and your mortgage. So those are things we'll have to work out.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Any other discussion on item 12 of our agenda? I have a motion to place item 12 on file.
So move.
Second, by Keen.
And any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. And then item 13 is a communication from the city administrator regarding the designation of interim successors. Can I have a motion to place that on file?
So move, Lysick.
Second, Weigel.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. And item 14, Finance Director Comptroller Report of checks issued. Can I have a motion to place that on file?
So move, Lysick.
Second, Weigel.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Item 15, a discussion regarding City Hall operations and alterations to address safety and security concerns and the streamlining of operations. Ms. Grill, I think that's you.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Rebecca Grill, City Administrator. One of the things that has been in discussion for a few years has been streamlining operations and moving more of our administrative functions towards, I guess you could call it the front of house at City Hall, in order to make things better for businesses, as well as provide some additional safety for our employees. Right now, there's a lot of exposure in most areas of the building. Well, not today, but normally when we're open, people can pretty much walk throughout the building, and not only does that expose people to risk, our employees to risks, it also doesn't allow people to work as efficiently as possible. I've read different things where every time someone gets interrupted, it takes like 10 to 15 minutes to refocus on the task that you were involved in. And so when we have a number of places that people go to get services from departments, on their way there, there's a lot of interactions with the different front desk people. So we've had discussions about moving towards eliminating that. And I just wanted to, since we've been closed here at City Hall too, a lot of the departments have found efficiencies, and we've learned that a majority of things that people thought they couldn't do online, they can. But depending upon how long we're going to be closed, I wanted to get the go-ahead from the committee and the council to come up with some plans for just probably building a wall structure with some doors in it towards the front of the lobby, and doing some alterations to the HR department, bringing out the counter there so we could have some administrative staff there to help people, and getting some computer kiosks out there so people could do things online for those people that don't have access online. Obviously, there's also been discussions about perhaps looking at building a new city hall in conjunction with some other buildings because of the numerous maintenance and other types of costs that we have with our aging buildings. So I would want to try to do this as minimal cost as possible. It won't exactly be an ideal long-term thing, but I think it would tide us over for a few years until we can hopefully get to a facility that's the most efficient and safe for the operations for the citizens and the employees.
Yeah, and my response, Rebecca, I think would be yes, that sounds good, and I think that's probably where the most of the council is as well. Just the concern would be is that we would want to see and be able to approve these changes to City Hall before we start swinging sledgehammers and things like that.
Okay. I will probably ask Dave and his staff to come up here so we can look at things. Met with Ed to talk about different safety things today. So I would think that on May 5th, the next council meeting, we would have some drawings and ideas for you at that point.
That sounds good to me. Is there any discussion on this issue?
Chair.
Alderman Lysick.
I totally agree. I think it's time to move forward with this and at least get some plans and get some idea what it would cost us to do this.
Okay, very good. And if there isn't any further discussion, can I have a motion to place on file item number 15?
So moved. Weigel.
Second, Tenorio.
All right, and we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And then we'll skip the closed session items just for a moment, and then we'll jump back to them. And we'll go to the city attorney claim report. Can I have a motion to place on file items 20, 21, and 22, and to deny items 23, 24, and 25?
So move. Lysick.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. And then, Kale, this is directed to you. Before I read us into closed session, I assume we still want to go into closed session. Is that correct?
Yes, Alderperson Haas, for 16 through 19, and this is a roll call vote.
Yep, thank you. So for agenda items 16 through 19, the committee may convene in closed session pursuant to the provisions of Wisconsin Statute Section 19.851G for the purpose of conferring with the city attorney, who will render oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted with respect to litigation in which the city is or is likely to become involved. The committee may reconvene in open session after the completion of the closed session to consider the balance of the agenda. So that, can I have a motion to go into closed session?
So move.
We have a motion from Alderman Lysick and a second.
Second, Tenorio.
And a second from Alderman Tenario. And I'll do a roll call vote. Alderperson Keene.
Here.
Alderman Lysick.
Aye.
Alderman Tenorio.
Aye.
Alderman Weigel.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So we are in closed session.